Welcome to this afternoon's session. We are going to be talking about how to attract the right kind of clients, and I have a stellar lineup with me. So first of all, William Lidstone is joining us from Edgin. See, look, you can tell I've talked too much today. Joining us from Engine, and is their chief growth officer. Engine are an agency I've always had an eye on, and I've had, I guess, the lucky preview chats with Will. So he's got some great things to share with us. They do some really great new business tactics at Engine. So very excited to speak to you, Will. And then also for any of you that have regularly joined our New World of New Biz or any of my other events, you may well have already seen both Diane and Hayley with me before, both very popular guests of mine. So Diane is with us for the second time this week, because yesterday she also joined me at the New World of New Biz, and is currently strategy director at IBM. Is that right, Diane? Nearly, yes, I think so. But has not just worked for agencies and has some really great insights into how to attract the right kind of, well, in fact, yesterday we were speaking a lot about partnerships, but exactly how she is reaching the right kind of clients through at ID Agency. But also previous to that was head of marketing at Orla Keeley and has run marketing for lots of other brands. So also had a really, really good view on the brand side of things. And then with the total brand view, and a very, very popular guest of our previous webinars, Hayley Jane Doyle. So Hayley Jane joins us from Seedlip, who, again, if any of you were on my breakout session this morning, will hear that I did pitch to Seedlip once and sadly came second. Hayley, we haven't spoken about this enough.
I want to hear all the juicy details.
I know, I will tell you all about it to Ben, not the founder Ben, but the head of marketing, Ben, and a couple of other people at the time. So Hayley is here as our resident brand and is going to tell us exactly what she is looking for when she's, looking for a new agency, I guess. So if you've got any questions, please feel free to pop them into the chat. And there's a Q&A I think there as well, so do feel free to write any questions that you might have, and I will try and make sure that I put them to our fantastic guests. But of course, because it's always every single agency's priority to talk directly to the needs of the brands, it would be great, Hayley, if you can start with, I guess, it's really tough for agencies to get noticed by brands. So is there anything, certainly, I guess, amidst the craziness that we are now in and everyone's working from home, how have you seen any really stand out agencies and how have they approached you? And how can they get noticed by you? I think that's something that, we all often, struggle to think of new and different ideas. So it'd be great to hear about the kind of things that you really like to see from agencies.
Sure. And I guess I agree with you, Katie, that having also worked quite a few years back agency side, it's not easy and it's not always the most pleasant experience. So yeah, acknowledge that massively. So what do I like? What stands out? I think firstly, really human and really simple is what works for me. So anything that's too overcomplicated in terms of the method of communication, or indeed the actual message that's trying to be landed with me, if that's too much, if I can't simply fit it in what I'm working on, if I can't refer back to it quite easily, then that kind of puts me off. I think the approaches that really stand out are ones where the agency's done a decent bit of research on where you fit in the organization, what consumer-facing comms and marketing, I suppose, you've done already, what agencies you work with currently, so that they're fitting themselves in your broader mix and understanding the full context that you're working within. And then I'm just thinking back now to agencies that I have gone back to if they've made a first approach. Generally, they have been on email, not always, but generally. And they've been really bespoke in their comms around what their niche is as an agency, so that I can understand how they stand out from the crowd and what they can specifically bring to me. And then they've made it really bespoke to my role, my brand, our team, and it makes it as easy and seamless as possible for you to be able to then fit that in your thinking and in your plans.
Yeah, one of the things that I'm always an advocate of, and any of my clients that are here today will know this, is not just reaching out and, you know, sharing your case studies or sharing your creds deck, because that isn't helpful. Are there any kind of tactical things that you prefer to engage with, Hayley? And I know obviously this is just you, but you, having worked with lots of other people across the sector, do you like to be invited to webinars? Do you like listening to podcasts? Do you want to read insights pieces? Is there a kind of, you know, tactic that you prefer to be engaged with, or do you not mind? If it's by email, do you not mind? Do you consume various?
I think, and again, like you say, this is just personal. For me, the simpler the better, and the insight pieces and the webinars are brilliant. But if I haven't had a conversation at all, even if it's not verbal, face to face, it's just something on email, sometimes that's too much of a stretch as a first thing. Again, that's just me. But if I've had some kind of back and forth, or there's been an initial conversation and then there's a follow-up after, which is something that they're running already, or there's a particular event, I think I'm more likely to be open to it, I suppose.
Yeah, agreed. I think it's, you know, if you want to you've got to look at the journey and start with something that is easier to engage with, and then level up from that point onwards. I would totally agree with that. Well, now you guys at Engine have an amazing marketing machine behind you and do some really great tactics, some that I massively admire. Are there any that have been working harder for you to attract, I guess, especially, you know, the right kind of clients, certainly over the past few months? Are there any kind of standout tactics or things that you guys have done that have really helped drive the right kind of new business opportunities for you?
I think there was a couple of aspects really, and you know, echo what Hayley Jane's saying about being human. I think the first place we would start with any, you know, attracting a client is, do we have a connection to them? Is there some kind of referral or kind of reputation that we can build? The second thing, we take it very seriously, and to your point about not being overcomplicated, is how do we do things which are, I use this phrase, nice touches rather than grand gestures. So how do we do things which, like, people go, that's thoughtful and interesting or kind or amusing, rather than some kind of overplayed thing. So in the frame of that, that's kind of how we kind of approach everything. Where we've had a lot of success, especially in the last kind of year, I suppose, through the kind of COVID thing, is around kind of generosity. So we try and put together events which really are helpful, genuinely great to attend. We had the brilliant thinker, Matthew Syed, a couple of weeks ago. We had 700 people turn up to that. And we do things like Brilliant Women, it's for C-suite females in the industry, either agency or client side, who often have kind of breakfast together or lunch together virtually. And it's somewhere between, you know, inspiring each other, helping each other out, a networking event, and a kind of support role for them. So that action around generosity, reputation, and nice touches over grand gestures are all kind of guiding principles for us and our team.
I went on mute there because, of course, I start getting loads of deliveries when I'm talking. Just that's the new world that we're all living and operating in. And Diane, I know you guys have got quite a unique proposition at ID Agency. How have you guys been, you know, finding and reaching clients in the new world where we're all sat at home having our doorbells ring all the time?
Yeah, we've got two distinct offerings. One is our brand experience offering, which we have a heritage in of about 27 years. And then we have a completely new product that we're launching for the first time. So you've got kind of two opposite ends of the spectrum. So the strategy we've taken on the brand experience side is to kind of really go back to why we're the experts and bringing value I guess, in our outward messaging around that to people who we assume will need our services. And then on our adult retail side, it's been a much broader approach, and I think we're very much in a sort of test and learn phase. I think going back to Hayley Jane's point about being human and doing your research, I think with all the tactics we're using, we're really trying to look at different types of targets and why we may need to reach them. We're not just going down a one size fits all approach. So yeah, it's a very interesting mix of things we're trying.
And I think that's, it is so important. I bang on about this a lot, is you really do have to think about what the needs of your audience are. If you're not starting with, the problem or trying to understand, the problem, and that's going back to what you said at the beginning, Hayley Jane, is if you're not trying to understand, what's going on within your prospect's business, the problems that they might have and why and how you might be able to help them, then personally, it's a non-starter for me. You're never going to land, certainly the right kind of clients or the right kind of conversations, because you're not talking to the needs of your audience. So, I mean, all of this has to be grounded in research and an understanding of what's going on in the marketplace and what potentially is going on within your prospects' world. Will, are there any, this isn't something we've discussed, by the way, in the prep work, so I'm really putting you on the spot here, but Will's given me lots of really amazing insights, so I'm gonna come to you first on this one. Are there any research platforms that you guys use in order to really understand what's going on in the market, to kind of set the agenda for your marketing?
Yeah, quite a few. I think it's quite, there's two or three. I think it's really important to know what's going on in the marketplace. I think just basic kind of industry trade press is obvious and has to be done. We have to know which agencies are working with which clients and whether there's opportunity. There is I don't want to give all the secrets away here, but there's a database which is not cheap, but is very good, called Winmo, and in the creative agency space, has an algorithm which basically looks at allocates what risk a client or agency is at, and it's weighted typically to kind of things like massive change of personnel, or a buyout, or some other kind of weighting. So we use both of those, and then we use things. We're a big fan of Contagious.io is brilliant for us to see what is being done by other agencies in that space, in the kind of category. So I think between that, the category, the people, the broader trade are sort of three areas we would immediately kind of look at as we're thinking about kind of prospecting.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the biggest. I was speaking to, so we use ALF and Winmo as well. And I was speaking to the head of sales at ALF last week, and she was saying, that is the biggest buying signal, the biggest buying trigger is when a new CMO or someone in the C-suite, or a new marketing director, whoever it might be, is coming on board. They usually are coming in and want to make some changes. It's obvious, but not every agency is watching out for those kind of triggers. And if you don't have ALF and Winmo, another little sneaky way to do it is to just go on LinkedIn job search, and you can see what jobs are being recruited for, and just wait a month or two until they've been recruited. And actually LinkedIn, if you've got sales nav, you can also look for people that are new in post in the last 3 months, and then you can integrate things like Prospect.io or Lusher to kind of mine email data. So there we go, a few more secrets of the trade. But I think and actually that's something I used to do prior to ALF and Winmo having these kind of things integrated. I would look on LinkedIn and look at jobs, before you could search based on the jobs. I would just actually look for job posts and see. And even more old school, like 15, 20 years ago, I was probably looking in the newspapers who was recruiting. So yeah, it is one of the biggest triggers. So that's when, it's a really good time to start looking. Hayley, when you have been in post and new in post, and I guess you are still fairly new in post, I think that's an interesting subject for us to dig into. Are you always looking to bring new agencies in or make big changes? And how do you even start to kind of go through that process?
Yeah, I guess one thought that you triggered just with what you were talking about, another just final tip before I answer that was some advice that someone gave me around networking ages ago, and I think it rings true here. Setting Google alerts up for whether it's a person or a brand, very obvious, but it's free, it's easy, and you can just be in the know. Now answer your actual question, Katie. So I think when you join a brand, or your role is evolving in the team, or sort of, changes are happening, I think it completely depends. So for Seedlip and Acorn, we do quite a chunk of our stuff in-house. So the way that we select agencies is selective because we've got a really good, strong team, and therefore it's even more important, I suppose, to understand the context that we're working within and the specific niche value add that can be brought. And I think if I think over the years at various brands and when changes happened, I don't think it's always the case that someone new comes in or leadership shifts and they want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. I think quite often there's a lot of change happening, and therefore in any time of instability, I suppose we all know this year, that you rely very much on what's familiar and you kind of stay safe. So that's sort of one reaction I suppose I've seen in the past. And then you'll always get an element of people wanting to make their own stamp on something, but I don't think that always has to be an agency shift unless what's there at the minute isn't working. And sort of another thought broadly in all of this, and this is true in so many scenarios, the best way to be recognised for something and to be recruited, whether that's a person or an agency, is to do an amazing job on what you're doing already. And I think I've had that advice on a personal level over the years that, if you're wanting a promotion or you're wanting to work for a particular brand or whatever it is, don't chase it and forget to deliver why you're actually here. Don't forget your current purpose, because then you'll sort of, you'll drift your focus and then you take your eye off the ball, what you're actually meant to be doing. So from an agency side, those clients, the projects that you're working on, you'd hope sort of on the choosing the right ones, you'd hope that they are in the field that you want to be, but put most of your energy on making them amazing, incredible, knock them out the park, because then the brands that are of similar ilk to them, similar size projects or similar categories or whatever it is that's your niche, will recognize you anyway, and will see that the fruits of your labor paid off.
Yeah, totally. And actually, when I used to lead new business for agencies, that would be where the majority of our leads would come, because they'd see, oh, you did this for cancer research, or you did this, and we know that we've got some similar challenges to them. So I'm not saying, I think I said at the beginning, don't just send out your case studies, but do make sure that your case studies are up together and relevant, and because you often will get noticed for those by other brands in that sector, especially if you are niching in a certain sector. Hayley, that's really useful. One of the things that you also spoke about, which I think is really interesting, especially over the last year or so, is that kind of staying safe and relying on the agencies that you trust. And I think Will and Diane, when we were speaking to prep for this webinar, we spoke about something that I preach, and I always feel bad but I think everyone here is in the world of BD, right? So I'm safe, but I always feel bad when I'm talking to agencies saying there is no silver bullet, sadly, for new business. You've got to have a long-term view. Now, most of my clients don't don't want to have a long-term view. They want to see results straight away. And we do our darndest, and we really work on that value prop to make sure we are delivering meetings and getting engagement for our clients as early as we possibly can in the process. And that's usually after 2 or 3 months. However, I thought it was really interesting, Will, when you said, actually, you've got a really long-term view. So most of my clients have, and when I've worked at an agency, you kind of go, realistically, if you've got a new business person starting, or you're engaging a new biz agency, you're looking, before you actually start recognizing money, 9 to 12 months, as a rule of thumb. But you were saying, Will, that you actually you really go much further than that, and you're actually looking at a kind of 3 to 5 year plan. And I think when we're going back to what Hayley's saying, you might have been engaging with an agency for years, looking at their content, attending events, reading, insights posts from them. But until you have that need, or you've got that scratch that you need to itch, and that's why it's so important to consistently have content that you're putting out that is helping your audience and talking to their needs. Because if you don't, you lose out. But I thought it was, the 3 to 5 year thing. I've not heard that before.
I think it's really important. I think it's some of the, it anchors you in a completely different way. If you think, if your whole sort of lens on new businesses, how do we build a really strong pipeline over a 5 year horizon? You build different systems, you probably hire different people, you take different approaches, and I think it's inevitable. That's how people will succeed. I know it seems quite a long time, but it takes a long time to establish and build a brand. That's effectively what you're doing. So, and I think it just is the short-termism probably will help people in quarter by quarter, but taking a much longer-term view builds a much healthier pipeline, much better team, and much better results in the long run. And funny enough, it's exactly, I was having breakfast with a client this morning, and he was saying exactly the same thing, that he's had taken a 20-year view of building his brand, not a quarter by quarter view. And it's interesting that it kind of echoes the same way, really, in new business pipelines.
I think if you take that longer term view and you focus your efforts on doing your marketing really well, you then negate the need. Does that make sense? You know what I mean? You stop having to do the short term tactics because you have a strong flow of people that understand you, that know why you exist, know how you can help them, because you've done that job really well. So you're not having to do as much of the crappy sales outreach, and you build a really strong pipeline. Unfortunately, we're not all there yet, and some people are having to do that. You have to do a bit of both when you're getting started on this. But I think hopefully most of the people with us today have taken that long-term view and are really focusing their marketing efforts on that outreach. However, I am going to talk about the more short-term tactics because, we've got to cover every base here today. And we were talking earlier about LinkedIn. Now, this is, I'm a massive lover of LinkedIn, and I'm always shocked when I talk to brands actually how much they use it to do research. And I think agencies, although we use it a lot and we live and breathe there, we don't realize actually the brands and the heads of marketing and the people that we're trying to target live there probably even more than we do sometimes. But I do think you have to be quite clever in terms of how you use the platform. So I'm not a big lover of LinkedIn inboxing. However, I am a big lover of publishing really good content on there. So any views from you guys on what has worked for you or what you like to see on LinkedIn?
I agree with you, Katie, that it's more appealing and attractive and when you're taking in and experiencing content of your own choice. So you choose to follow who you want to follow, you read what you want to follow, you click on those links, yada yada yada. It's down to your decisions and what you want to read and what you want to see, and things definitely stand out, and the network there is so rich. I don't mind inboxing. I think it's most effective when when you follow, I suppose, all those kind of tactics I was mentioning at the beginning. So when it's a human interaction, when it's quite simple, when you feel like you're being brought something of value, I find it's just more irritating than anything when there's sort of an inbox from someone you don't know and it's a bit of a weird question, or someone's continuously nagging you, or a voice note from someone you've never met. Just thinking of it's a normal relationship. If you think of it like dating, you wouldn't send a video or a voice note to someone before your first date, I hope. I wouldn't anyway. So it's just thinking of it as you're talking to a human on the other side, even though you can't see them, you feel them. It's having that normal, helpful, simple interaction. And what you were saying, William, around the kind, small gestures rather than ta-da, something huge that then feels a bit strange.
We use LinkedIn a lot, and I think we're about between 15 and 16,000 LinkedIn connections. But what we'll do is we will do our kind of prospecting for the week, and then we'll look for, using LinkedIn, people in our business who've already, and it helps that we're reasonably scaled, I suppose, who've got a connection, a first circle connection with people. So the outreach comes from people, if they're prepared to do it, and if they think it's the right thing to do, and they're not uncomfortable doing it, we'll ask them to do the outreach, and then it comes from somebody they know or they respect in the industry, and that obviously lands much better than a LinkedIn, cold mail.
Yeah. Sorry, I was just going to add that LinkedIn's going through, or has been going through, quite a few changes recently. What with adding the ability to go live, they've launched stories, and I think there's an element of people forgetting that it still is a professional platform. And I'm not necessarily saying that's a bad thing, but I do, when I scroll through and I see like a meme of a dog and I find it quite funny, I get lost in the moment, but there's a fine line between using it outwardly in a way that represents either yourself or your business versus it becoming another kind of Facebook platform. So it's just, you've got to kind of know where you sit on the platform and who you're targeting, and always just remember that, I think.
Definitely. I think we see real success with LinkedIn when we're using it as I believe it should be used, which is as a publishing platform, and I have a lot of incoming inquiries that come to us for Street because they've seen our content on LinkedIn. I don't do any LinkedIn inboxing. In fact, maybe very occasionally when we're looking for fantastic speakers like you guys to attend webinars, but really that would be the only reason I would ever inbox someone that I didn't know on LinkedIn. I think you've got to be really clever about how you do that. I do think it's interesting. We had so the same fantastic lady, Amanda from ALF, she was saying to me about the different ways that people try to, or the different ways that you can target people. So your email, LinkedIn, etc. And actually, what was quite interesting, or what I thought was quite interesting, is 100%. And in fact, there is a poll, guys. Check out in the tabs. There's chat, polls, and Q&A. And please do give it a little vote. But it was really interesting, and I wonder whether we'll get the same results today, that 100% of the people that they interviewed in a survey they did a few months ago used email to do their prospecting. Only 67% of people actually got on the phone and phoned people, and I think 0% or something, she was saying, use video. Now, I'm not sure how much personally I believe in, recording a video and sending it to someone. However, I have explored it for inviting someone to be a podcast guest, like a really high profile, speaker that I would love to come on the podcast, for instance, because it's going to be hard for me to grab their attention. But I think, there's a fine line between innovation and, doing something quite different and cool to attract your prospect's attention, and being seen as tacky and a bit naff. So you've got to be super, super careful. Have any of you seen or tried anything that's a bit different, that's either worked really well or you have found has landed on its face?
We have tried. Oh, sorry, Hayley Jane.
You go, Diane.
Well, we have tried sending out a few videos because I think one of our products needs quite a lot of explanation, but we haven't hit on the sweet spot as yet as to how to do it effectively enough. But I've certainly had people send me a lot of videos. Some I find better than others. So I feel like it's still a new thing.
Yeah, it's hard, isn't it? Because part of me goes, it's a new thing, so you're going to get better cut through by doing it. Then the other part of me goes, oh, no, don't do it because it's really naff. But so therefore, I feel like I kind of want to explore it and do it just to see how it fares. I'd love, for any of you, I can already see some people are starting to comment in the chat. If you've done it and it's worked, please do say, because it's, it is innovative and it is a new way of doing things. And, I bloody voice note people all the time on my WhatsApp. That is how I communicate because I'm lazy, I'm time poor, and I need to get my message across really quickly. So I haven't delved into that from a new business perspective, from a prospecting point of view, as yet. And I know, Hayley Jane, you said that is not something that you want to hear from as a first interaction. But if you'd already engaged with someone, I assume you wouldn't mind it. So it could be part of the journey, but not the first part of the journey.
Exactly. Yeah, I think if it's, and again, someone else might absolutely love this, but I just find it a bit invasive and a bit, maybe it's over familiar when you don't have any rapport already. Whereas if there's a relationship there, then the closer you're working, the better. And stylistically, if you're both into voice noting, then great. The video thing, there's one, it reminded me now, I've had one person send a video on LinkedIn on an inbox, and actually it was really tasteful, and it was quite simple, and the guy who did it, he was self-aware enough to introduce it in a way that felt quite natural and quite authentic, and therefore I did watch it and had a giggle, but then listened and did respond, and it didn't lead anywhere because it just wasn't the right thing, but I appreciated the effort that he'd gone to, and it was quite it felt relatively normal as an interaction. On the flip side, back when we used to work in offices and a previous brand, I've had someone send a sort of box thing that when it landed on my desk, and then when you opened it, this guy popped up on a video being like, hello, Hayley Jane, come and buy whatever it was. I can't remember what it was, but it was on the tacky side of things, that it just, everyone in the office put their heads up, everyone crowds around, but for the wrong reasons of what is that, rather than, oh, how interesting, now we'll get in touch. So I think it's a fine balance.
It's so hard, isn't it? And I've run some really different campaigns in the past. Once we made chocolates for loads of brands, and we actually spent a whole day, the whole of the account management team at quite a big agency, and we made these kind of bespoke, unique chocolates for all these different brands. We then, had a look at, it was a digital agency, we had a look at their websites, we made some kind of notes, made each single one, I think we did it two prospects per person, so a team of like 10 of us sent out 20 boxes of chocolates or whatever it might have been, and we got an amazing, I think we had bar 2 brands, every single brand responded to us because it was really unique and bespoke, and we took photos of us doing it, and we put some Polaroids in, and we did have a couple of people, like I think British Airways, that weren't allowed to actually receive them, so just got sent back to us. I'm not saying make chocolates right now with COVID, it's probably a definite no, but there is a really fine line on doing something that helps get you noticed and or being a little bit tacky.
I don't know if it's a very fine line. I think it's a pretty clear line. You just reminded me of a couple of things, but I don't know if anyone remembers years ago an agency pitching for Subway in the US, and they made the most contrived video you've ever seen and put it on the newly formed YouTube platform as a way. It was part of the pitch process. And they got in terrible trouble because they broke all their NDAs by putting this on a broadcast platform. But worst of all, this thing just kind of made the whole industry absolutely kind of cringe. It was so badly done. You can't really come back from that. But I think if you follow the guidance that you're trying to build a friendship, a relationship, you sort of take it a bit steady, don't you, at the beginning? Nobody really likes to sort of be pressured into any kind of relationship, do they? But all that said, one of the best things we've done in the last year or so, or the thing that has got the most traction, was a hastily put together reel of all of our work we did in lockdown. Yeah, we called it a lockdown reel. Just showing that we were still out there making stuff and solving problems despite all the restrictions, and it got thousands and thousands of views. So it can work, but I think it's pretty. If you're thinking, might this go wrong, or am I on the wrong side of the line? Even that's like going through your head, I would pull back unless you're super confident.
Yeah, I like Flurry's comment. Hi, Flurry, by the way, saying in my first agency, someone thought it'd be a good idea to send a jar of sweets. They arrived smashed and someone cut their hands. Lesson learned. Yeah, I agree. One of my agency MDs, where he works in the property industry, decided to send people bricks in the post. And I was dead against the idea. I know. And none of them got received by anyone. And I think like 80% of them got sent back to us, and it was very, very expensive and didn't get us any opportunities, believe it or not. Anyway, so yeah, be different if you think it makes sense and it's going to be a helpful difference, I would say would be the tip. Martin has asked, what tips do you have for getting your content noticed by your target audience on LinkedIn? And I think that, again, that's a really interesting question right now, because we are all living in the digital world very much at the moment. So how do you develop content that gets noticed and gets sent out? I mean, there's lots that goes underneath this. One of my top tips, now we get really great engagement from video content, but what actually we have found does even better than videos is these kind of slide share posts. And I actually refer to them as value posts, because each time you swipe through, you're learning a bit more and it's giving you more and more content. And the other thing, is to shatter your content. I do webinars and things like this, and every time we do something, we use lots of different clips and we shatter the content down. I talk about this quite a lot. So we'll create value posts, we'll create an insight piece that will go on our website. We'll create little video snippets. We might create some little sound bites. So if you're doing or delivering a piece of content, think about how you can shatter that content and and push it out on your social channels to help you get noticed. Video, like you've just said, Will, I think is always a great one as well. Anyone else got any tips on how you can get content noticed on LinkedIn?
A very simple one, but good tagging. And because I think LinkedIn, one of the beauties of it is that you feel part of a network that's wider than perhaps your actual physical network or your kind of close one. And smart tagging can make you feel properly part of that wider group, and then it inevitably increases the reach because other people are seeing it. And so I think that really helps. And also because after all you're trying to link in with a specific audience, the timing of when you post, so thinking about when is your audience most likely to be scrolling, as you would as a brand when you're trying to attract new customers or consumers.
Yeah, do your research and understand where they live as well. Which platforms are they living in? Which groups are they involved in? Who do they follow? Who do they care about? I must say, certainly from LinkedIn, we obviously are always focusing on growing our clients and also our own company pages, but we do tend to get much better engagement when you're posting as a person. So also think about, and I think in terms of getting reach, if you post the content fresh yourself, I'm no massive social media expert, but I know this just from doing it, that if you post the content fresh from yourself, rather than resharing it from your company page, you get a lot more reach. Unless someone else tells me that's not true, then I'm going with that for the moment. I know these algorithms, the social algorithms, change all the time, but we do see that. So I will often post the same content, but framed and written about slightly differently from my own page, or my own, from me as a person, and also from street agency, but framed in a slightly different way. So that helps as well. Hopefully that's helpful. Don't have long left, so we've got 5 minutes to kind of dig into a final few questions. So I'm just going to pick up what is the split for you all between individual posts on a senior team or company posts? So Flurry, do you do more company posts or more individual posts from your team? I think that's what you mean. I would say we probably do more from the company, but would do better if we did them more from the people, personally. I don't know what your views are. I mean, Will, you guys have got a hugely engaged audience. Do you find that you have the same, do you do better with your company posts sometimes than your individual people's posts?
Do you know what, we do everything at a group level, a company level, but we basically think about it a bit like programming strands as you would in TV. So it's difficult to know. I mean, I know some of my colleagues have got enormous reach in social media, but that seems to be their world, their personal world. I'm really grateful if they share something from Engine because they want to, but we don't ask them to post on their we don't ask them to do that. They do it if they genuinely want to share it. So I think you're right, but I've never asked anyone to actually do things on their personal channels.
Yeah, it's hard, isn't it? Can you get them? You can't really force people to use their own personal channels. I will, because it's my business. So yeah, I mean, if you can encourage that, I think it's a great way to do it.
We've just done a really quick in-house challenge where we asked all of our staff to get involved really actively through social and LinkedIn specifically. We called it the 40 Days of Lent Challenge, where everyone had to literally jump on board at any level in the company, and we saw our engagement go through the roof, and we also had a lot of following pickups, which is a bit of a vanity metric. But yeah, I think getting everyone involved, I think probably post-wise we're pretty split 50-50, but to your point, Katie, I do think we get better traction when it's a personal post rather than a company one. And on the original point before, I would say don't make a business social LinkedIn page all about selling. Try and add a lot of value content as well, a lot of giving back, appearing on other people's feeds, asking questions, answering questions. Be out there, be social. That's the point of social media.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Be social. That is so true. Yeah, you forget social media is social. So be social and be helpful. I think that's I'm always, talking about solving and not selling, and really a big advocate. The more that you give and the more helpful you are, it will come back to you in spades. It's, if you can just be open, honest, and as long as you truly understand how you can help and what the needs of your audience are, and you're putting that content out there, I think gone are the days, I hope, and I have worked with a few agencies that don't feel like this, and I would say they're going to find it harder to do new business. But don't be worried about giving all your secrets away, because the likelihood is, even if you did give all your secrets away, they're not going to have the brand, or the prospect isn't always going to have the time to do it themselves in-house. And I know that's really hard, certainly when you spend a lot of time pitching and giving all your ideas away, and then you feel that they're just taking them, and and maybe they are, but I think a lot of the time, from a marketing perspective, the more that you give, the more that you will receive. So it is worth being open and being helpful, because the likelihood is, even if they're not you, they don't have your staff, they don't have your people, and even if they want to do it all themselves, a lot of the time they won't be able to. So don't be afraid to give your secret sauce away, I would say. So just before we wrap up, I think I am right, please say in the chat, tech support, that we're finishing at 12:45. I think that's right, and not 12:45, 2:45, because you can tell I've done too many of these things today. But can I just have your top tip, if agencies were to take one thing away today to engage and attract the right kind of clients, what should they do? So as the as the brand voice, Hayley Jane, you're up first. What can they do to grab your attention? And don't all now prospect to Hayley Jane, by the way, please. Unless you really feel that you can help her.
I would say, to my original point around doing amazing work, and then be credible and be human.
Love it. Diane?
Know your USP for your own brand and agency. What is your actual selling point? What are you experts in? There are a lot of competition out there, but you will have your niche and know it.
Yeah, don't be afraid to niche. That's a massive one, actually, that again, people often, are scared to niche in too much, but actually you can't talk to everyone. So yeah, do feel free to niche, and do niche if you can do. Will, what about yourself?
Long term over short term, nice touches over grand gestures, and frame everything in a sense of generosity, and you can't get far wrong.
Brilliant. Love it. Thank you so much, guys.